All good to go? Everyone's all good to go? Police have made 7 arrests following investigations in relation to renewed tensions between street gangs in Adelaide. The Youth and Street Gangs Task Force is aware that there is tension between rival street gangs that has seen members attending opposing street gang home addresses and causing some damage. There's also been some assaults and some affrays. On Tuesday the 6th of May in the early hours of the morning, police were called to a Salisbury Park address. After a number of people attended, they smashed windows to the home and 2 vehicles at the address were damaged as well. A short time later, patrols attended an address at Brahma Lodge following a group attending there where the front windows to a home and the front door were damaged as well. Later that evening, at the same Salisbury Park address at about 10 p.m, further damage was caused. That followed about 10:30. On the same date, a group attended a Salisbury East address armed with baseball bats, machetes and damaged the windows to that home. In the early hours of Wednesday the 7th of May, so virtually within a 48-hour period, police were called to a Ross Trevor address where there was some minor damage to the property there and a vehicle at that address. 7 people have been arrested to date, with further arrests expected. There have been several weapons seized, including baseball bats, knives, machetes, an axe, hammer and a baton. To date, there's a 15-year-old from Salisbury Park has been arrested for aggravated assault and aggravated affray. A 21-year-old man from West Beach has been charged with 2 counts of property damage, unlawfully on premises and carry offensive weapon. A 17-year-old boy from Paraka charged with aggravated affray. A 16-year-old boy from Brahma Lodge charged with aggravated affray. An 18-year-old female from Salisbury East charged with breaching bail. A 24-year-old from Northfield charged with aggravated assault, cause harm, property damage and possess a prohibited weapon. A 22-year-old man from Andrews Farm charged with breach of bail. Of those 7, 4 are remanded in custody and the remaining 3 are on strict bail conditions. We'll continue to be relentless. There will be further arrests. We certainly do not tolerate any of this tit for tat between any of these rival gangs in relation to the actions that they're undertaking. We want to make sure that everyone is safe. And we certainly are concerned in relation to any incorrect addresses that might be targeted, as had occurred in December last year. But we will take action. There will be further arrests. It's a high priority for the Youth and Street Gangs Task Force and for other districts in the metropolitan area that are supporting the task force with that as well. Those involved will be arrested. Any further action is a high priority. We will take swift action, put them before the courts, remand them in custody where possible. I'm happy to take some questions.
When did you become aware of these 2 gangs?
Yeah, sorry, the incidents.
Yeah.
So there was an incident that first occurred in April that we became aware of an incident that had occurred. The Youth and Street Gangs Task Force were very proactive at that time, had a lot of contact with the main players. Everything had gone quiet for almost a month, and then on the 6th of May the damage occurred at those addresses as I outlined. We're also aware that in the 6th of May there was an incident at Torrensville. It was not reported to police, where there seems to have been a little bit of conflict Henley Beach Road, Torrensville, near some shops. So we're concerned about the escalation of incidents occurring at a range of suburbs: Salisbury East, Salisbury Park, Brahma Lodge, Croydon Park, Ross Trevor. And last weekend there were a couple of fights in the city around the Morfett Street, North Terrace, Hindley Street area, and they're actively being investigated. We'll have a look at CCTV to see if we can actually identify any of those people, and they will be arrested and put before the courts. It seems as though the main cause for the conflict between these various groups, street gangs, is primarily because one person has moved from one gang to the other. We've been quite successful in recent times with arrests and putting people before the courts and having a number remanded in custody, that has certainly disseminated or weakened some of the groups. They're not as probably established as they were, so that's seen some people move to some other groups. Some other groups seem to be trying to become established and emerge. It's too early at this stage for us to label or name who they might be, because it's just, I think people are trying to get a bit of a feel for where they might sit, but the main reason has been the one person moving from one street gang to another, and that person has given the addresses to his new friends of previous addresses, and that's why they've gone and targeted some of their addresses, causing some damage.
Any of these people arrested, are they considered ringleaders of either KBS or 051?
I wouldn't say that they're ringleaders, and it's probably a little bit too early or to link them to any one particular group, especially with the fact that they're moving around to the different ones. We've been quite successful with some of our investigations for these groups. There's quite a number of them remanded in custody, not just for these matters, but for other investigations that we've undertaken. That certainly has weakened the positioning of some of those groups, and that's why some of them are starting to look to some other groups, and some are even looking to almost create a new identity for some groups. So at this stage, it's a little bit too early to tell or pick any one particular group. It's just that general environment in relation to those people that have generally mixed between, the previous KBS and so forth. But we'll be relentless, and we will arrest and charge any of them that do think that they can get around and cause damage to people's homes. Our concern is, as occurred in December last year, where an innocent person, was severely injured. I won't discuss that too much further because it's currently before the courts, but we certainly don't want that to occur again.
Was that incident you spoke of, the incorrect address from December, was that incident in Ayr last year, the suburb?
Brahma Lodge.
In terms of the 7 arrests, were those charges laid against them specifically from the 5 that you described?
These incidents, 7, the 7 arrests, correct. And in addition to the items seized, we've gone and searched addresses. These are the items that we've located. So there's a number of breach of bail as well. So by the work that we do, it's not only investigating one matter. Our members are proactive, and if existing persons of interest are on bail conditions, then we'll be proactive to make sure that they're complying with their bail. And as in this case, some of them weren't complying with their bail and they've been arrested and charged for that. And we'll continue to do that.
In terms of the other arrests that you said they're going to be further arrests, do you know how many people were involved in the affrays and assaults that you...
No, they varied. I know on one of them there was up to about 8 people seen, but that number has varied, and sometimes some people's observations of whether there might be 8 or 6 or 9 can vary. Rely on CCTV from homes, people's account of matters, but we will be relentless and we will arrest all those responsible. We'll continue to do that. We'll be proactive. So the message to those people is, if you don't want to, be spending your nights in custody, then do the right thing and act like any other member of the community should act.
In terms of the addresses that from these incidents, are there other people that aren't gang related living at these addresses that have been caught up in?
Well, most of these people live with their family members, so and just because it might be their address, it's not to say that they're there all the time. So that's where people that might not have any links to these people other than through family, could be targeted. And no one wants to have their windows smashed. No one wants to have their car damaged because they can't get to work and so forth. So that's where other people get tied up. But also the message to the people that people need to, in the community, have your own responsibility. And if you've got one of your lads or one of your friends that you think might be going down a bit of a wrong path, well, pull them into line, because it doesn't only impact that person by being arrested, it impacts all the family members by the consequences that follow from that.
Just to clarify, with the series of incidents that happened on the 6th and 7th of May, was it just property damage that happened?
Yeah, it was just property damage. Yeah, on the 6th, starting in the early hours of the morning, out at Salisbury Park, property damage there, then gone to the Brahma Lodge. So in those first 48 hours there's a fair bit of property damage. As I said, there's some assaults on the weekend in the city, which we're actively investigating, but it's primarily just been property damage at this stage, primarily just some windows smashed to vehicles and front window and that sort of thing.
During those 2 days, did you notice that the violence or maybe the weapons they've used sort of escalated?
I wouldn't say it's escalated. It's probably been consistent with what they've generally we found in possession with. But as I said, we'll be relentless. They will be arrested. We will seize items. We've even actively had a look and worked out which stores they've actually gone to purchase some of these items. So that's given us additional evidence to substantiate some of the charges. So as I said, we'll look at and do everything that we can to prevent this violence from escalating further. So.
You also said there's new groups emerging, but it's not just the typical two. How many new groups are you noticing? What sort of behaviour do you see with them?
Yeah, I wouldn't say any behaviour is changing in amongst that street gangs environment. It's more, I think, because some groups might be a bit more decimated because of how many of them are remanded in custody, and some of them might move different addresses. Some of the groups are simply having their name geographically from where they're living, whether it's a postcode or a suburb. So there's no significant thought going into any particular names. It's just what the postcode couple of digits might be or a particular suburb. So as I said, at this stage, it's probably a bit too early for us to say this is a set group, like in the past with some of the other groups that we've found. And as I said, most of those are in custody at the moment, and we hope to put more in custody.
Sorry, you say more arrests are imminent. How many more arrests do you preempt?
I will do as many as possible. So as soon as we can identify who has gone and done these damages or the assaults in the city, we'll arrest as many as we can. So.
Do you have any persons of interest at this stage?
Sorry?
Do you have any persons of interest at this stage? Have you identified anyone that you're about to arrest?
Yeah, there are. As I said, we'll just need to go through all the CCTV, especially from the weekend, and work out who our youth and street gangs members and our district members can identify, and we'll go through that process. So.
Has youth crime increased in South Australia?
No, not necessarily. No. As I said, there's been quite some good reductions overall, different crime categories, range of different things. So there's been some real positive results. Only just today we released the monthly crime stats. Certainly some significant reductions in other theft. So those repeat offenders that continually target retail stores, we've had some really good results in that regard. So, and we'll continue to do that month on month.
Have these gangs, though, contributed to our youth crime situation?
No, not necessarily, because we call it youth, but the work and the members in that group really range in age from 14, 15, up until early 21, 22, 23. So that's what we look within our umbrella of the Youth and Street Gangs Task Force, as opposed to the strict definition of a youth under the juvenile justice system that is under 18. So the two don't necessarily 100% correlate from one to the other. So.
In terms of the people that you have arrested, you mentioned there were 7, 3 have been put on strict bail conditions. Are those the 3 that are under 18?
No, not all 3 of them. There's one of the juveniles is in custody. One of the adults is out. So combination. It depends on their circumstances as to reasons for refusing police bail and having them remanded in court, and the court remanding them in custody. So.
And when were these arrests made? Over the last week?
Yeah, it's pretty much primarily been over the last week. As I said, we'll continue to be active. I said it was just important just to outline the work that we're currently doing, hopefully put a lid on it, and again actively investigate what's occurred on the weekend, and we'll continue to investigate anything that happens. And importantly, the Youth and Street Gangs Task Force will continue to be proactive, working with the districts in relation to taking whatever action that we can take.
One of these offenders is just 15. Are you worried of recruitment, being re-recruited when they are eventually let out? What do you do?
Oh, look, it's these things evolve. That's why it's important for our area to make that continued proactive focus and attention on them. That's why we've seen, some groups not be as emergent, as much of a profile as they were at the start, and we're starting to see some other different names and groups. It's just a revolving beast. Hopefully the people mature and are valued members of the community.
The 7 arrests you made, are any of them repeat offenders?
Well, obviously with some breaching bail, they've obviously been arrested before, so it'll probably be a combination of that. So.
And you also said that you were investigating, or you know where these offenders are getting knives from. Are those shops under investigation?
Well, most of those shops, typical hardware store. So, anyone can sell. Go to a hardware store and you can have a look at a whole range of different things that anyone can buy. So the items that they're buying aren't illegal items to sell. So, but it gives us, some good evidence in relation to why they're going to buy some of those things. So.
And also, the task force itself was previously understaffed or had other people filling in positions while you were searching for permanent staff. The last figure we had was that there was still 7 vacancies out of 33. What vacancy number are you looking at now? So
what occurred previously there was about a dozen or so positions that each of the districts, what we call seconded staff into it. So the task force and previously Operation Mandrake and Meld had their numbers. It was the districts where they gave up their staff to the task force, they effectively carried the vacancy. What we did earlier this year was have those additional positions filled, so that rather than having a secondment model, those positions can be permanently filled and the districts fill their positions as well. So it's a win-win. Just like any area in SAPOL, there's always movement, staff coming and going, there's always a few vacancies. I couldn't tell you the exact number at the moment, but I'm comfortable with the resources that I've currently got in the Youth and Street Gangs Task Force within my umbrella of the Metro Operations Service with all the other 4 districts where I've got almost 2,000 staff, and I will move staff around as needed depending on where intelligence indicates they need to go.
Do you feel like the task force is getting on top of youth crime?
Well, as I outlined earlier, it's not strictly just the youth crime under 18, it's the youth and street gangs whole emphasis and those repeat serious offenders. There's been some excellent results. Quite a number of people remanded in custody. There's a continual changing environment in relation to who the persons of interest are, and that's positive in the sense of they're either seeing the errors of their way and not being repeat offenders, or they're being remanded in custody so that there's less impact on the community.
Last question, please.
I'm going to rephrase this question. So when I was asking you before about new groups emerging, I appreciate the fact that these are very small groups who don't really have organisation as per se. But how many, can you put a number of how many new groups you are seeing and where are they mostly located?
Yeah, it's a bit hard to say. Look, traditionally, majority of our work in this space has primarily been north and western suburbs in that type of environment, predominantly. It's a little bit difficult to say how many actual key groups there are. Maybe as time goes on and as things get a little bit more settled and we have a bit of a clear indication of who might be aligned to who, we might be in a better position to outline that, but at this stage we can't. So okay.
We're seeing members from street gangs being pinched and essentially going to other groups, and we're saying that's because a lot of the members are currently in custody or in prison. Is that in some sort of way kind of a win for police, because you're kind of like these groups are becoming unstable because you're getting these people?
Yeah, well, it's a win for police when they're remanded in custody and they're not having an impact on the community. That's a win for police.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ciao.